Hi, Julio here, talking about rational emotive behavior education. What is that, you may ask? Well, it's the application of Albert Ellis's rational emotive behavior therapy principles in daily teaching practice in the early childhood context. And the way we deliver that to children is through the Have a Go Spaghettio Success Helper approach to social emotional learning. Franklin feels sad. What's up with Franklin? He's throwing his clothes about and disobeying his parents. His friends come and he's discourteous towards them. He goes to his room and accidentally knocks over a block building he and Otter made. He cries in frustration and his dad comes in and asks Franklin why he feels so sad and angry. Otter has moved away, he tells his father, and she was his best friend. Dad understands now why Franklin feels sad, and he decides to apply his Have a Go Spaghettio Success Helper knowledge to help Franklin deal with this unfortunate event in his son's life. So that's the scenario. That's what's happened in Franklin's life. Just to revisit the Have a Go Spaghettio Success Helper chart, there are 6 capabilities or competencies, behaviors, outlooks, attitudes. These are the 6 competencies that the theory suggests helps not just young people but everyone to negotiate their lives as successfully as they possibly can, factoring in the fact that there will always be challenges and barriers to overcome. And so there are 6 of them here, each color-coded. The yellow is unconditional acceptance of others, meaning that you have worth. That's given to you. I can't take that away unless you allow me to. So that's unconditional acceptance of others. The blue is doing your best, internal locus of control, the ability to work through tough stuff. Green is goal setting, time management, having the things you need to reach your goals. Purple is managing my emotions, developing frustration tolerance, and internal locus of control, and applying what I know in practice so that I can moderate and regulate how I feel and behave. Red is unconditional self-acceptance, the belief that I'm okay even if you don't think so. Easier said than done, but it's something that can be internalized if we teach it consistently every day, and that's the goal of Have a Go Spaghettio, is to teach kids that their worth is never in question, and to demonstrate in lots of different ways how that's the case. Orange is we're all okay, combining yellow and red to make orange. So that's the international color of harmony. There's the emotional thermometer there. That's to try and identify the intensity of how someone might be feeling. And then there's the catastrophe scale, which is about putting into perspective things that might go wrong or might be unsettling to us, putting them in some kind of perspective so we don't think that something is as bad as we tell ourselves it is. So these 3 elements, or these 3 teaching tools, I recommend that they're within sight of every child, and refer to quite often, very often, every day. Franklin's bad day. There's a QR code there that will take you to the video. In terms of the ABC theory of emotional disturbance, where A is what happens, and C is how I feel and how I behave, and B is my interpretation of what's happening, my perception of events, Franklin's best friend Otter has moved away. They were best friends, they always hung out together, they were close, and then Franklin's world seemingly is turned upside down because she's moved away. Behaviorally and emotionally, he feels gutted, distraught, angry. He shouts at his parents and friends. He retreats to his room. He struggling to process what's happened. And he determines at B that this is the worst thing that could ever happen. This is bad, shouldn't have happened, it's not fair. And what am I going to do? I'll never be able to be friends with Otter again. So all of this kind of thinking is going through his mind. So Franklin's bad day, the evidence suggests, is his bad day is a reflection of, or is linked to, his interpretation of events. So is it possible that his bad day isn't as bad as he thinks it is? So he's fortunate because he has a father who understands the basic philosophical underpinnings of the Go Spaghettio success helper approach to social emotional learning, and he helps his son in his son's time of crisis. Franklin's bad day. If we were to construct Franklin's catastrophe scale to help him put into perspective the badness of what's happening, it might look something like this. And this is something you could do with the children. You can brainstorm and suggest and ask the children, if you were Franklin and you were a turtle and this is what happened, or if you were a turtle, what are some things that might present as problems to you? And so we might brainstorm, ideas might come forth like, well, my friend Otter's moved far away. That could be a 5 to 6 on the catastrophe scale in terms of its calamitous or its catastrophic status. I scratched my shell. Might not be so bad. Beaver told me off. A friend, maybe that might rate 3 to 4. Breaking a toe might be problematic, so that might be a 4 or 5, rate 4 or 5. Mum gets turtleitis, which is a significant disease, which could be a 6 or 7 on the scale, or maybe even 8. And I've got heaps of homework, might be a problem, 2 to 3. So this catastrophe scale is used to suggest to Franklin that even though Otter's moved away, at this point in time, you might reconfigure how you think about it. Is it the worst thing that can happen, or are there other things that could be as bad or worse? So this is a useful tool to challenge or dispute Franklin's irrational outlook at this stage. Now, before I talk about this, the catastrophe scale mentioned before, Franklin's father, and when he heard Franklin in his room crying, he went in to ask Franklin what happened. It was then that father understood that Franklin's upset was linked to Otter moving away. And at the time, Franklin thought this was the worst thing that can happen. Father suggested, well, you can still be friends, but it won't be in the same way as it was. Otter will not be returning. So in terms of the ABC theory, A meaning what happened, Franklin's friend moving away, A, is indeed what happened. But that's not going to change. And if Franklin's thinking that if Otter can't come back, I can't be happy again, that's a problem for Franklin. And Dad's saying, look, Otter's not going to come back, but you can still be friends in different ways. So initially, Franklin was thinking at B1, his initial perception or interpretation of what's happening. Otter's moved away. This is really bad. Worst thing that can ever happen. It's not fair. What am I going to do? And of course, thinking that way in terms of feelings and behaviors at C1, C being the emotional and behavioral consequence of A, Franklin was feeling extremely sad, extremely angry. and behavior was uncharacteristic, throwing things around, breaking things, shouting at his friends and his parents. So that was B1. Now, when Dad came into the room and suggested, well, hang on, I hear what you're saying. Otter's moved away. Otter's not going to come back. But you can still be friends. So at B2, Franklin starts to reconfigure, or as a colleague of mine uses the term, to rethink the situation. Franklin is now thinking that I would prefer that Otter was still here and we could be friends as we used to be, but I understand that's not going to happen. But I can still be friends because Dad said that I can phone Otter, I can visit Otter maybe once in a while, I can write letters. There are other things that I can do to maintain my friendship. So Franklin's moved from B1 thinking to B2 thinking. Franklin has changed the way that he is interpreting, processing what's happening. And in the story, he becomes optimistic, and he feels excited about the prospects of maintaining his friendship. So that's B2. So B2 thinking makes C2 emotions and behaviors. So C2 is I feel enthusiastic now. I'm hopeful. I feel like I can still maintain my friendship with my friend Otter. So C2 is Franklin feels better. He feels hopeful. And the D part there, of course, is Dad's role. Dad, when speaking with Franklin, suggested that you might think that this is a lost cause, but you can still be friends. You can still maintain your friendship with Otter. And he is really a new outlook, a new way of thinking about what's happened. And so Franklin actually, at the end of the story, feels pretty positive. So what started out as Franklin's bad day turned out to be Franklin's not so bad day. In fact, it was Franklin's okay day. Not exactly as he would want it to be, but there were options open to him. So change your thinking, change how you feel, change how you behave. So that's the ABC theory of emotional disturbance as it applies to Franklin's bad day. And what I hope to convey is that if, as educators, we understand the ABC theory, we can use it in our general teaching practice, and specifically when we are reading stories to children or watching videos, we can deconstruct what's happening using the paradigm outlined here and provided through the Go Spaghettio Success Helper approach to social emotional learning. Something you might want to follow up with, and this is just a suggestion, you might have a role play situation where Franklin and Beaver are with each other, and Franklin said, this is the worstest thing that could ever happen, this is a bad day, my life's never going to be the same again, what am I going to do, it's not fair. And Beaver says, well, how come you feel that way? And Franklin said, my friend's gone away and it's just not fair. And Beaver says, well, hang on, let's check your catastrophe scale, Franklin. And Franklin said, oh, yeah, I can see there's things that could be worse than this. And Beaver says, now what can we do about this? Which in the story, Father helps Franklin to rethink the situation, reconfigure, reset. And by the way, Beaver said, there's no such word as worstest. So that's just an idea. You might use role play situations where you can practice applying the catastrophe scale and getting children familiar with what the catastrophe scale is and how it's used and how they might use it in role play. And a catastrophe scale, or using a catastrophe scale, is the D part of the ABC theory of emotional disturbance. D is disputation of irrational beliefs. And when we present a catastrophe scale to Franklin or a child, we're actually presenting the evidence that challenges the belief at B1, that this is the worst thing that could ever happen. So that's an idea, and teachers will come up with, I'm sure, lots of good ideas to reinforce these teaching principles, rational emotive behavior therapy. Have a Go Spaghettio song. Always have this in my presentation because, you know, it's just something that's a fun thing to do at the beginning of the day. We are forecasting or thinking ahead and what the day may or may not bring, and how we're going to use our positive mindset or a success helper, brain friend mindset. And we're going to be successful today. We're going to achieve, and we're going to have sad bits perhaps, but we're going to work through them using our understanding of the ABC theory of emotional disturbance via the Have a Go Spaghettio success helper approach outlines. The Have a Go Spaghettio song. Actually, as I'm speaking now, I can remember a child. When I came to school one day, I cycled up the hill, got off my bike, and this little child got out the car, just came up to me, looked up at me, and started singing "Have a Go Spaghettio." So we both sang it together on the path outside the school. It's just come to mind now. So as I usually do, I finish up with a quote by Albert Ellis. This one I've used before, because I just think it's such an important idea, and it's certainly something that has motivated me to maintain my emphasis on the importance of teaching REBT principles in daily teaching practice through rational emotive behavior education. So this Albert Ellis quote: "I think the future of psychotherapy and psychology is in the school system. We need to teach every child how to rarely seriously disturb himself or herself, and how to overcome disturbance when it occurs." I've used this before. It's very important, and the key word there is, or ideas there is, helping children to understand that their disturbance or their upset is caused by their irrational perspective or interpretation of events, and that if they understand that, they can reconfigure, rethink, as my colleague says, and then change how they feel and behave. So self-disturbance to me is something that's interesting, because quite often people will say their disturbance is caused by someone or something beyond them, like "you made me feel this way, it's your fault," or "it makes me mad." So we want children to say, what role am I playing in my upset? I wonder what I can do about it. Alfred Korzybski, the creator of general semantics, is another quote I include here. Albert Ellis said that Korzybski's work heavily influenced his own thinking around rational emotive behavior therapy. And this is an interesting quote from Alfred Korzybski. He says, "The map is not the territory, the word is not the thing it describes." The word is not the thing. When we say a child is smart, we might be abstracting something from many qualities and characteristics, and suggesting that this one quality describes the child in a universal sense. You are smart. This idea that you are your smartness, according to Korzybski and Ellis, is irrational. You may be competent in certain areas, but it certainly doesn't define you. So when Korzybski talks about the word is not the thing it describes, then to me that's a very important concept for us all to internalize. So I'll leave it with you so you can mull over that, think about that. And until next time, have a Go Spaghettio and give it a try. Banana pie. All the best.